Hi guys. Today I am leaving BBC Radio 1. Um, that's a really hard thing to say. You might not know me, but I have been freelancing at BBC Radio 1 for 4 years. I started radio in 2013. I went to Warwick University and I found student radio and decided that student radio was the dream for me. I wanted to be a sports journalist and I got involved in the newspaper. And I remember the editor of the newspaper at the time, Isaac Lee, I was so excited. I messaged him before even joining uni to say, Isaac, I want to get involved in sports journalism. And he said, Tim, okay, come in and have a chat. And when I came in and have a chat, he recommended the student radio station to me, Raw 12:51 AM. And I joined Raw and instantly I found that radio presenting was the dream for me. There were some amazing people who I met very early on, people like Abby McCarthy, who was just leaving Raw as I started. A lot of my colleagues from Raw have ended up working with me at BBC Radio 1, but at some point during my time at Raw, I found Greg James at a student radio conference. And the moment I saw the content Greg was making, when he was doing the lip sync with Taylor Swift, when he invented carpool karaoke, which James Corden then completely ruthlessly stole, that was the moment I knew I wanted to work for BBC Radio 1. And I didn't give up. I kept pushing, I kept getting rejected. I was lucky enough to get work experience in 2015 at Radio 1, go into the station and meet amazing people like Joe Harland and Matt Fincham at the time, who was a very high-up producer. I worked on Greg's show for the first time. Well, I shadowed it. But I was going to these conferences and making myself a bit of a nuisance, to be honest with you. Because I had these big ideas, like I wanted to do a sports show, I wanted to make waves. And then I managed to win a student radio award after I left uni. Leaving uni was hard. I left uni and was just unemployed, but I kept doing radio for free. I joined a station called Switch Radio, and I was basically working full-time for free. I joined a station called Brum Radio. I did commentary for BHBN Hospital Radio. I was working for free for 3 different hospital radio stations at the same time, because that is how much I love radio. And it was always the case that Radio 1 was the dream. And I remember the Where It Begins scheme, the internship for Radio 1, One Extra in Asian Network. I applied for that 3 times. I got 3 rejections. The first 2, I got an interview and got rejected. The third time, I was rejected without even an interview. And at that point, I'd been rejected so many times, I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I remember literally screenshotting my rejection and putting it literally on Facebook saying, I want to share that I failed this time because I'm not going to give up. And a month and a half later, I was sitting in a Radio 1 live lounge. I managed to get myself into freelancing at the BBC by emailing the head of sport at BBC WM at the time and asking to do phone-ups over the Easter holiday. And very luckily, he said yes. And through that, I was able to join Asian Network as a freelancer just by emailing and saying, I'm a freelancer looking for work. After 1 week of training at the BBC, they said to me they wanted to pay me for that training and book me in for shifts the next week. And after that week of shifts at Asian Network, they asked me if I wanted to work at Radio 1. Because I'd worked so hard and clearly I cared so much that they thought I was someone they should offer the, step to Radio 1 in London. And it was that moment where after, literally 6-7 years of relentlessly trying to get something and getting nothing, to be asked to do it, to not even have to ask to do it, it was the most beautiful experience. And I went to Radio 1 and, the only way I can describe Radio 1 is it's like a TV show, right? It's like your favourite TV show. You look at all the characters in the same way you would The Office. Michael Scott is there. Michael Scott's Greg James. I don't know, like Pam is Alice Levine or something like that. And you do think that they're not real people, but then you go in there and you realize they are. All your favorite people from Radio 1, your favorite TV show, your favorite brand, they are real people. And they basically showed me so much love and so much care. It was like being a character in my favorite TV show. Annie Mac, Scott Mills, Nick Grimshaw, Greg James, Chris Stark, like even Maya Jama, Molly King. Molly King came up to me and introduced herself. Every single one of those people was as nice as I could have dreamed they were being. And I remember my first ever day working on Greg's show, my idol Greg James. He came up to me and said, because I'd interviewed him by this point. We'd met quite a few times, and he obviously knew that I was a big fan of him. And he said, "Tim, it's so cool we can finally work on a show together." Greg James, my idol, said that to me. And, you know, that's the best day of my life, and that will never be topped. My hero at my dream workplace that I'd managed to fight so hard through so many skeptics, so many bullies, so many people who just didn't like me to get to. He came up to me and said, "Tim, I'm so happy that you're here so I can work with you." And that's what the presenters at Radio 1 are like. They are just the most wonderful people in the world. And in a lot of ways, freelancing, which is what I did for the next 4 years, I worked across all the main shows, the ones I've listed, you know, Grimmy, Annie, Greg. On that main schedule would be 11:30 to a 7:30 shift. So you'd come in, you'd be kind of doing the prep work for Scott and Chris while Clara was on. You'd be kind of preparing for Greg on drive time, you know, doing the callers on Scott and Chris. And you know, Clara would be around in the studio. Grimmy, you'd occasionally see him walk out at breakfast. For me, that's the golden generation. That was the reason I wanted to be at Radio 1, to be a part of that golden generation. And no one can ever take away from me the fact that I was in the building at the same time of those people. And I think when COVID happened, we all lost a lot. And going back in that environment after COVID and seeing how disparate everything was really hard for me. And that's no one's fault. It just felt like some of the gloss for me had gone. And a lot of you might be thinking that I have no right to even make this video because I'm not a public face. But I think, as you'll have seen from clips from this video, I made a point of trying to post a lot on social media about being at Radio 1, because the big thing that I did was get involved in bands in Birmingham. And what does Radio 1 do? You know, they support bands. So I knew from the first day that I went into Radio 1, I had to use every single minute in there to try and do something useful. I couldn't take it for granted, because every day in there could be my last. And that meant that I wore a different band t-shirt pretty much every day I was there. I wanted to take a photo of me wearing a different band t-shirt so I could show my friends in bands in Birmingham that I was like a bridge between them and where they wanted to be, and that if I could get there, then so could they. And I'm so grateful and so thankful to God that I was able to be in that place to take those pictures. And I'm so glad I was, because even when it was maybe a bit of a grey area as to whether I should, looking back now, deciding that I won't be freelancing for them anymore, it shows me that, you know, those memories are real and no one can gaslight me, because there have been people who've tried to downplay how involved I've been. Being a 0 hours freelancer is difficult. You don't have regular hours. You can produce a national radio show one week and then go to, you know, the most junior shift the next week. And there is a culture whereby you maybe feel a bit less valued. There have been times at Radio 1 where I haven't felt welcome. And these are issues that I have flagged internally as a Birmingham-based freelancer who literally commutes to London to work. I remember being on a coach at 5 a.m. on Boxing Day to work on Jordan North's show because it was a Christmas shift and I just wanted to. Everyone was saying you're crazy, but I was like, no, I want to. They were like, are you sure you're fine to travel? And I said, no, I want to. So that's how much I care. But when you go there, the presenters are the best thing, and there are some wonderful people there. I want to shout out Layla Mitwali. She's an awesome person I've met there. She has a whole channel where she just makes tea for people who come into Radio 1, like Tom Grennan, KSI, Lewis Capaldi, everyone like Matty Healy, and she just films them describing how they like their tea. There's some wonderful people, but for whatever reason, I've not always felt welcome by everyone. I felt quite unwelcome. And I hope these are things that are ongoing, because I'm not planning to leave the BBC. It's quite complicated, my situation, where I'm a casual pool freelancer, which means that I can be offered shifts at any time. I'm on the books, basically, but I'm on a 0 hours contract, so I have no guarantee of work ever, and that's fine. I agreed to that. I wanted the flexibility to be able to keep doing my presenting, so I wasn't looking for a full-time contract and that security, which they might be able to offer. So what I'm effectively saying with this video is that I no longer will be accepting shifts from Radio 1 if they're offered to me, which maybe they won't, they probably won't, but I hope that I can continue a positive working relationship with One Extra and BBC Asian Network. Maybe at some point in the future I'd love to work with Radio 1 again, but I feel the big situation here that I'm sure is the elephant in the room you're waiting for me to address is presenting. Because I've been very open and very vocal about wanting to present on Radio 1, despite being someone who's behind the scenes at the station, which in the past has maybe been a point of difficulty for some people, or a conflict of interest. But my attitude was always, I loved Radio 1 so much, I didn't want to go to a station that only played one type of music, like a Capital or a Radio X even, because Radio X indie music, that is kind of what I'm known for, but I love rap, I love soul, I love jazz, I love classical, I love everything. And the thing I love most about Radio 1 and people like Annie Mac and Zane Lowe, who are legends, is genre is not a thing at Radio 1 in the same way. You know, the playlist will have an eclectic range of everything. And, you know, there were times when I thought maybe I would, or I tried, but my heart was telling me it's BBC Radio 1 or nothing, because I don't want to compromise on the music that I love to go somewhere else and not be able to express what I love. And that's been difficult, because the moment you say you want to present and you're in production, there's always going to be some people who get a bit weird with you, some people who are looking at you, maybe with not the most positive intentions, maybe kind of hoping you fail. And that's very much been my experience this year. There have been a lot of people, some that I know quite well, who I feel have stopped talking to me because of what I've been saying on social media. And they haven't been telling me it's wrong. No one, officially or unofficially at the station, has said for a second that anything I've said at any point on social media or in person is bad, or that I should stop it. That's the key thing here. There's been no official communication. I know I've been outspoken. I nailed myself to the mast by saying I wanted to get Lovejoy and Lando Norris on BBC Radio 1 this Christmas, if I was given a Christmas show. The relevant people who were making that decision at the station were aware of that situation, and they chose to not give me a show, which is fine, and that is a very understandable decision, I think. But also, I think I deserve a show, and I know that I would do a show that would be so good and engage so many young people, just like I have on Twitch, that it might really propel Radio 1 into a new audience of people through Twitch. The reason I'm making this video is because the Christmas lineup has been announced, and I'm not on it. And that's okay. I wasn't told beforehand. I kind of had a feeling I wasn't, because we know in the industry when things are decided, but I wasn't told. That's fine. We knew the game. But what frustrates me even more that I wasn't expecting is a takeover has been announced with TikTok stars. And I'm going to look at this on my phone, because I don't know if I can tab out of this screen, but my key frustration is I feel that the people who are best suited for shows aren't being given them. And I was kind of expecting to not get a Radio 1 Christmas show. What I'd like to do first is look at the people who have got the Christmas show to see if I recognise any of these faces. Because this is a very small industry and everyone knows everyone, and I'm seeing this for the first time, and I'm not jealous of people who've got shows. I used to be. I used to be jealous. I used to really struggle. But now I feel like I have my calling and I'm just happy. I'm also unhappy that right now you can see on this screen that the TikTok takeover is taking the headlines away from the hardworking student radio and community radio presenters who really have worked hard to become good at radio. The most agonizing, frustrating thing for people like us is seeing people get shows on stations like Radio 1 who aren't radio presenters. Because I've been radio presenting for 11 years. That's why I'm good. Someone like Kerry Kosh has been working so hard for so long to get so good. There are many people. Louise Schofield, a good friend of mine, has been working so hard. She is a phenomenal presenter. And there are people on Radio 1 who are worse than her. And I don't know why they're there. And I think it's because of management. And I find that very frustrating. When I say management, I mean talent management. I find it very frustrating because I see from the inside that I don't believe the most worthy people are getting the opportunities. And I don't believe the people who would engage the listeners and our Radio 1 family the best are getting the opportunities. So I'm going to scroll past TikTok Takeover and look at these people. These are the people who matter. The people who clearly are radio presenters who have applied for the Christmas Takeover. I hope they've applied. I really hope they applied. Angel Joseph is brilliant. I know her from BBC Introducing. She does a lot of great work, and I believe she presented on the Takeover last year as well. So it's cool that she's got it. Chrissy Cameron, Betty Douglas. The full list of Christmas Takeover presenters. Okay, I'll see how many names I know here. Jodie Bryant. There you go. I know Jodie Bryant. I thought this might be the case. Jodie is, I kind of know her from Kiss and Music. I actually went to her gig night in London a couple of weeks ago. I did 7 gigs in 7 days, and Jodie's gig was one of the ones I went to. So Jodie, I know on this. Jodie's great. Jodie gives me like next Abby McCarthy vibes. Angela Joseph is great. From Ipswich, she's doing Indie Show and Future Artists. I think I know Connor Knight. I don't know many of these people, to be honest. Martha 29 from Peckham. Oh, is that DJ? I think I know Martha. I think I know her. I think she's done lots of Radio 1 before. Cool. Well, I don't know any of these people, which is great. That's what the Christmas Takeover is. Now, I was not expecting this. I thought they'd announce the Christmas presenters and make it big and centre. My problem is now something a lot deeper than this. The TikTok takeover. Now, number one, what do we know about TikTok? It is a short form video creation app. What do we know about radio? Radio is a long form audio broadcasting medium. So why on earth would short form video creators be in any way suitable to cover shows on the most prestigious radio station in the country? Answer, they wouldn't. Oh, but if only there was a big social media platform with lots of great creators who are used to broadcasting for several hours at a time and holding and engaging with a captive audience of Gen Z over and over and over. If only, can anyone think of a medium that I'm describing here? A medium where young people in the UK have achieved wild success, especially over the pandemic, through streaming themselves, talking for many hours to a young audience and engaging them, and I guarantee speaking about music. Twitch is the elephant in the room. In my first 2 weeks on Twitch, I got more engagement than I did in 10 years of radio with Gen Z. My figures now, my last show, my most successful show, I got 760 messages. That is more than a lot of Radio 1 shows get. And maybe people will be upset with me for saying that, but I have 180 followers and Radio 1 have millions. This is the situation where I feel that I can't work for a station that I believe in more than it believes in me. It's not a personal situation, I don't think, but many things have happened that make me feel that I don't want to give any energy to working for this station specifically anymore. Because I feel, from what I've heard from other people and from what I've experienced myself, that we're kind of jumping the shark right now. If we're putting TikTokers on Radio 1 instead of Twitch streamers, how and why are we doing that? Because my big thing was, give Wilbur Soot and Tommy Innit a Radio 1 show. They would be so good, and all they do is stream themselves, like I'm speaking to you now, for hours speaking to an audience. They are the perfect fit for radio. They have done it already. I guarantee you, if you bring a TikToker, an average TikToker, into Radio 1 and say to them, do a radio show for 3 hours, they are going to be shit. Some might be naturally good, but I was shit when I did radio at the start. Any talented presenter, even a talented TV presenter who hasn't done radio before, will be shit. And there will be producers who will have to work so hard to make them sound good. And that infuriates and maddens me when you could just bring in Twitch streamers who already do these type of things from their own room, so they would adapt to radio like fish to water. I'm doing well on Twitch because Twitch and radio are basically twins. The only difference is that Twitch has video and integrated live chat. And, you know, I'm just lost for words when Max Fosh gets a show, because I have been very outspoken on my Twitch about my thoughts about Max Fosh. I'm not going to go into that in detail here. There'll be another video about Max Fosh, believe me. I've already streamed it. I was already going to put it out. Max Fosh is someone who parked a car outside of Radio 1 with his CV on the roof, baited the head of Radio 1 on social media to pay attention to him and all the presenters to try and get himself a Radio 1 show to replace Innuendo Bingo. Innuendo Bingo, the industry hallmark of a great radio feature. And his idea was him counting boring objects with his mate while interviewing a celebrity. It was awful. It was absolutely terrible. And I want to show you guys something. This is a Student Radio Award. This is an industry standard award for audio programming. I won it for best sport programming. And when I listened to what Max Fosh's idea actually was, and of course I'm aware he went to Harrow, one of the most elite private schools in the country. When I saw all of his privilege that he used to orchestrate that position, to park this car outside, to make this big viral video, to use his social platform to get attention, I thought, well, I hope his idea is fucking good. And his idea was so bad that it wouldn't even get nominated for a Student Radio Award that I had won. And I know there is so many hundreds of talented young people out there, young presenters, who would die for that spot that Max Fosh has just got. He didn't even follow Radio 1 on social media when he tried to get that show. And Alid, the head of Radio 1, called him out for that. So for me to see Max Fosh get a show now, I'd already decided I was leaving. And this is just the final nail in the coffin. Like, I haven't told you guys everything because it's not appropriate to share everything. But I really have lost faith in the way things are being handled. And I feel like I have to speak up now because I don't believe that I'm the only one who's thinking this. I'm really worried about the future of radio because I've seen myself that I am already getting higher engagement with Gen Z than Radio 1 in a lot of cases. That is the truth based on analytics and figures. I know how many messages Radio 1 shows get from working internally. I've asked people who I'm friends with internally. And this, I wanted to leave in a more positive way than this. But the TikTok thing, if it was just the Christmas presenting thing, I would have left with my head held high, saying, I just didn't get it, and that's fine, and good luck to Jodie, good luck to Angel and all the other people. But this TikTok thing, I can't change the culture of Radio 1. I am not that senior, and I don't want to participate in this situation, specifically with Radio 1, while this is happening. And all I want to say is thank you to all of my colleagues and all of my friends at Radio 1. There's so many wonderful people, every presenter. I want to especially say thank you to Sam and Danny, two young presenters who I think are the most talented young presenters that I know in the industry. I think they're the future. Reese Parkinson, as a personal friend, has just been wonderful to me. And of course, Greg James, my idol, my hero, who gave me private support on my demo to apply for Christmas presenting in 2019. And maybe, I hope he doesn't mind me saying that, but Greg has messaged me privately a few times and showed me care and support because Greg is that kind of person. So I hope that at some point I will be back. I'm not leaving the BBC. I hope there will not be a conflict here. My contract is quite complicated, but the key thing I'm saying here is I don't feel, as someone who returned from a mental health break at the start of this year to freelance with BBC Radio 1 as well as Asian Network and 1 Extra, with that in mind, as well as the professional things that I'm seeing externally, alongside my knowledge of what I've experienced internally with some of the culture of Radio 1, I don't feel like in my healthy frame of mind, it's the best thing for me to continue working for this station as a freelancer. As a freelancer who's not based in London, a freelancer from Birmingham. And given the BBC's clear commitment to across the UK that Tim Davie has outlined, I find that quite upsetting and quite disappointing. And the only thing I can say is that this is not the first time I have said all these things that I'm saying now. I've raised issues internally, and maybe they're ongoing, but I don't feel at this point satisfied with the response that I've got. And it's not personal, but I have to make a stand now because I don't feel that it would be authentic of me to continue working for a station that doesn't believe in me. Because the truth of the matter is, had I got this Radio 1 show at Christmas, without going into detail, I was in quite a good position to get both Lovejoy and Lando Norris into BBC Radio 1. And if I had had a Radio 1 Christmas show with Lovejoy and Lando Norris, I think that would have broken 10 million on BBC Sounds. I really do. And that's what we need right now. But it doesn't matter. It wasn't meant to be, and Twitch is now my main focus. From next year, I'm going to be streaming 7 days a week on Twitch. I'm going to be developing my own content while hopefully still freelancing behind the scenes at the BBC with Asia Network and One Extra, and also working with an independent production company called Common Story, who are wonderful, who I've been working on some commissioning ideas for. I don't know if there will be a fallout from this. I'm not saying it to cause drama. I'm saying it because I feel that I need to say it publicly for my own well-being. The only last thing I have to say is go well. I'll see you guys real soon.